And now it's time for our weekly segment with News 9 News on 6 Griffin Media political analyst Scott Mitchell. Hello, Scott.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
And we're taping this on Thursday night, and it was a big day today on Thursday. Governor Stitt introducing his appointment, the first time in many years that a governor has been able to appoint a superintendent. I think we have to go back maybe to the Bellman era for that to have happened, but Governor Stitt appointed Lindel Fields to be the state superintendent. What are you hearing about that selection?
That it fits two changes from the previous administration. And those two are, number one, responsible, and number two, adult. And I'm really not joking. I mean, this is somebody with an impeccable record. Look, Lindel's a bureaucrat, okay? That's not a bad thing. I mean, people who show up, go to work, try to make life better for people. And a bureaucrat, here's an interesting thing. It's probably got a negative connotation, but they spend time trying to do good things, make things better, and not with an eye on the next election. And that's my understanding. What we have here is that this guy will spend the next, 15 months of the state administration and try to clean up the clown show that's been over there for 3 years. And so, and by the way, you think the ceiling is very high for Mr. Fields?
I was impressed by his speech this morning. His daughter was there. I don't know if any of his other children were there, but they were at Eisenhower, where his kids go to school. And I was impressed by his vulnerability. He seems like a kind man. I loved his mantra. I don't know if you heard it. It was do what you say what you mean, but don't say it mean. And I'm like, what a breath of fresh air this is. I'm like, yeah. I could feel the teachers of Oklahoma exhale. Like there's some real trauma that has happened over the past 3 years that's going to take some time to repair. And I think that's what he's tasked with. He did have a list of priorities that included reading and other things. But I think his first course of business is to repair the relationship between the administration and teachers.
That's a great point. Number two, I don't know if they'll be going, I don't know when he'll go into that office, if it will look like a scene from Ghostbusters, will they be wearing Tyvek? In all seriousness, have you run into one single person, responsible adult, public servant this week? Not ideologues, not people that are interested in the circus show that goes on all over the place these days. One responsible person who isn't going, it's a great day in Oklahoma.
Right. I sure haven't. And I think you and I, it's not that we're Pollyannic, but we're also not cynical. I believe that people on both sides of the aisle want to do good and want to get work done. And anybody who obstructs that mission, regardless of ideology, is going to be a hindrance to progress, however you see it.
So my wife the other day said to me, she goes, the last few stories you've done on Griffin have been, you've almost kind of stepped out of the analyst role. And I kind of pushed back. I said, not really. I mean, from an analysis would be what is happening over there. And if it's a smoldering dumpster fire, that's what it is. Okay. When you're 50th, it only took OSU 3 games this year to say, Mr. Gundy, you need to move on. And this legislature and this governor who frequently spar, okay, that department has been the biggest pain in the rear end to all of them up there across the board, Democrat, Republican, courts, for example. I mean, this is, and what we're talking about is, as we talked about last week, a 3-year losing streak. A 3-year losing streak. If you like ideologue and bombast and nonsense and hooey, that was your guy. But when it comes to delivering on what he was supposed to do, we were not hiring him to create memes and political satire. That's late night TV. This guy was supposed to be making our schools better and our students smarter. Fail. And we're not talking about a D. We're talking about the worst in the nation. Come on. I mean, so anyway, it has been, and listen, and Republicans outnumbering the D's. The only thing I see that's holding back, there are some people who loved the personality, and I suppose, 3 years ago, he was, if it's what do they call the baby faces in wrestling, and then they turn heel? This was like a wrestling deal, like a persona. And so it's gone. And I'm telling you, Ryan, what I'm hearing from people today is, man, that is so good. And the legacy for the governor, he gets to do what you just said, clean house, clean slate. But what I'm going to be watching for, there were two things. One, what the governor mentioned about appointing this in the future. And number two, the attorney general and the governor and Mr. Fields and the people that were going there, who knows what they're going to find.
Right. We learned this week that Attorney General Gentner Drummond has asked for an audit of the State Department of Education. There had been one of the role of Secretary of Education once upon a time, but this is for the State Department of Education, the state superintendent years under Ryan Walters. Just looking at the management of funds, I'm sure that we heard that Matt Langston is no longer there. Who knows what they're going to find in terms of expenditures? And Jennifer Palmer, in her email from Oklahoma Watch, said, or she explained that a forensic audit like this isn't done unless you're actually looking for fraud or embezzlement. This could be a problem for Ryan Walters down the road.
Yeah, I would probably be more confident if this was some sort of forensic audit done by like a law enforcement agency instead of the a government accountant. But I will tell you this, there have been rumors for years about irregularities. Just put it that way. And I haven't seen, I don't think there's a chimney where we could see the files being burned like in the old days when, the Soviet embassy was thinking we were going to attack them. And the whole point is there's going to be some real, Jennifer Palmer's right. People are going to be descending on that agency, trying to figure out what's been going on in there, because it's in essence 3-year occupation by a circus. So yeah, that's going to be what we'll be watching for.
To be fair, I don't think we are rooting for there to be, charges down the road. It's just that we suspect that they're because there's an audit, we know that you don't do that unless you're looking for something. And if it turns out there was nothing there, we'll all be pleasantly surprised and send our apologies. Now, to the point about Governor Stitt talking today at the press conference about this role being appointed, I told you before we recorded, I actually agree with the governor on this. I don't believe every role should be appointed. You elect the chief executive for a certain reason, and this role seems to fit within the structure of a cabinet. However, that's not something that the governor can do unilaterally. It would have to be the legislature to decide that. Is there any appetite for that?
Yes and no. There will be, early on in the Stitt administration, in his term, there was the House and the Senate went along with a lot of power shifts to the governor. That happened less and less as they sparred more frequently and a little more friction, and especially the third and fourth year. The governor has talked about within the last calendar year, he's mentioned it, and I've spent some time talking about electing everybody. And, we elect everybody. It's a populous state. Ostensibly to keep power from concentrating. It's done the opposite. When you look at Corporation Commission, Insurance Department, those agencies, powers concentrated, and the way it's set up, you have interest are going to be doing the majority of the campaign donations, and insurance companies and utilities to the corporation commissioners. Nothing wrong with it, but it is not exactly heaven on earth for consumers, right? And you have to count on the integrity of people there. But now we're seeing issues like our property insurance rates, and people saying things about that department, like who owns it. We've seen in Oklahoma history where you'll have a lieutenant governor of the opposite party of the governor working against the governor. I mean, we really need an auditor that we elect. Okay. We really need to have a state treasurer that we elect. And we see so many times how those offices become political. They're doing everything. All they're thinking about is running again. And I'm talking about all of them. Okay. The one exception on this, you never hear controversy about running for election has been the labor commissioner, Leslie Osborne. She's been doing her job for 8 years. They're not out there running for some other office. And I look up and down the list here, there's so many people running for some other office. So it's maybe a poli-sci exercise, Ryan, but would we have Lindel Fields will not be affected. It's not going to be impacted, apparently, by reports. He won't be seeking higher office. Guess what he'll be spending his time doing every single day, working on making SDE better.
Absolutely. And by the way, for anybody who's going to be overly cynical about this, you couldn't watch Lindel Fields and not really in your gut of guts think that he was the right pick. I thought it was a home run, and credit to the governor. Now, speaking of the governor, we've got a governor's race next year, and we have a new candidate. Chip Keating enters the race, but not only do we have a new candidate, we have what I think was the first shot fired in terms of a commercial that really took this week. Charles McCall, former Speaker of the House, with his ad and the banana. You know what I'm talking about. Everybody out there who pays attention to politics, what does your gut say in terms of effectiveness? You and I talked about this, and on Oklahoma Memo on my TikToks, I've talked about this. This was top of the funnel stuff, and it's all about capturing attention, because folks aren't going to give somebody they're not familiar with the time of day unless they're able to capture your attention. He needed to do that. He did that in the world of political advertising. Also a home run. What did you think?
Well, so I went to another memorial today. It was actually Representative Morissette's funeral mass was in New Hampshire today. And then there was a private memorial of a lot of politician types. This evening, my wife and I went to. I mean, we saw a lot of folks, blessed from the past and current. And guess what they all asked me? Just what you asked me, right? They were all talking about Charles McCall's ad. And then they began to talk about the poll that came out about the same time as the ad, showing that the race, this was done by former Speaker McCall's pollster, but respected pollster, Chris Wilson, showing the things dead heat.
Right.
Talk. That's what was going on. And so you said top of funnel, that it did exactly what it was designed to do.
Right. And I should note, I also noted this in some of the vertical videos I posted, not only McCall's pollster, but if you remember from the 2022 election, the only pollster who was even close to right. I mean, Chris Wilson was the sage of pollsters in 2022, and folks were laughing at him, and he's like, nope, we're confident. And he was spot on.
He nailed it. So that was my deal today, was people were going, well, do you believe that? Actually, I do. And I think that that's one of those, Speaker McCall's been on the air for a couple of months now, and he's talking those issues that appeal to the base. And that gigantic gap, there was some discussion. We all know who people were talking about. He, by the way, Walters wanted to run for governor so bad he couldn't see straight. When you come right down to the end, he couldn't raise enough money to pay his ethics fines. So not legit. And there have been some polling showing him up there. Well, people got tired of that. I mean, after how he behaved with a TV gate, and clearly he was lying about what was going on there. It just, I mean, the adults were looking at the rambunctious kid in the room and go, we're not going to have that. So where the people are going to come from. So I think for a month I've said clearly there are two front runners way before the poll came out that Charles McCall was going to get into this race. He was radio silent. He was working every county fair and old time retail politics. And that's something he's been concentrating on. And you go to those county pie festivals for Republicans, and that's where the activists are, and the activists turn to the other activists. And there's a talent gap likely between the front two candidates. The first ones to the poll or to the battle get to pick of the talent, from managers, consultants to your ad buys. And when they have access to cash, that's what's been going on. Clearly, the Attorney General and former Speaker McCall have got the most talented people working for them. They're way out in front. And, Chip Keating's family is famous in the state of Oklahoma. I saw Governor Keating and Mrs. Keating the other day, and people still love them. So, former Senator Mazie, there's some other candidates in there, but they all have enormous amount of catching up to do. One person that I really trust that watches this says all of them are going to probably need somewhere in the vicinity of just media, $6-7 million to get through the cycle. Well, I'd say Speaker McCall and Attorney General Drummond are way ahead of all of them on there. So we'll watch how that spending happens. And just because you're spending it doesn't mean that your ads are good. I don't know who's doing the speaker's commercials, but dang.
It's off.
Yeah.
I've watched political commercials for 3 decades plus. It was good. And it doesn't matter what I think of it politically. It was a catch your attention sort of ad. Scott Mitchell, News 9 News on 6 political analyst. Thank you so much. I want to remind folks, you can catch Scott on Hot Seat on Saturdays, and your vote counts both at News on 6 in Tulsa, News 9 in Oklahoma City. Scott, thank you very much. We'll do it again next week.
Always my pleasure, Mr. Welton.